learning moment is on working with Excel files from our MVC application. Now, if I could wax poetical for a moment here, maybe that's not the right term, but in my experience over the many years working with companies small and large, one of the most widely use tools, whether it's a financial manager, somebody in production, or any kind of business, is almost always a spreadsheet. Most typically Microsoft Excel, right? Being the most common one out there in the business world. So if you can get data out from your application into an Excel file, you will just see crowds cheering and loving your application in the business world, and the marketability of your app will go up tremendously, importing data from Excel files as well, and so on, right? So one of the things that's wonderful for us in terms of web applications, it always was a hindrance before. I mean, actually, I did a lot of work developing uh, automated Office applications, running internally inside of things like Access and so on over the years. But doing it from a web app was always a problem because you needed to have, in the old days, the actual Office DLLs, or object linking and embedding for Office applications on the web server to run your applications there. And that's gone now. So it's so much better for us with web applications. Basically, Microsoft has switched away from the binary formats for Office documents to this uh, OOXML. So basically, it's a compressed or zipped XML format. Pardon me. So it makes it easy for us to create and manipulate Office documents because essentially they're just text files, right? And so we're going to see how we can do that with Excel spreadsheets in particular. But you should be aware that you can expand this to work with any of the Office, Word, et cetera, right? Okay. So there are a number of packages out there that you can just install OpenOffice XML, right? And use it directly, okay? But it's something that is, kind of be non-trivial. And one of the many packages that are out there that make it much easier for us is this EPPlus. I'm going to focus on that one, but I just want to emphasize there are many other choices for you out there. This is just that I've used quite a bit. It's simple, it's easy to implement, and there's just one thing I'm not happy about. They've switched now. It used to be free, under a free license, but now version 5 and beyond, they switched the licensing. It's still free to use for like charities and so on, which of course many of our classroom projects might be, but not all of them. And if it's commercial use, then version 5 and beyond requires actually paying a fee, which not so great for us as students and so on. But as long as we stick to a version 4, we'll be fine, right? So just a note here, you can get to the GitHub for it here. This is a nice resource for EPPlus with lots of snippets and so on. So bits of code on how to do different things, add an image to a sheet, and so on and so forth. So there's lots of resources out there. Many, of course, right on the actual website for EPPlus. And there's a roadmap, for other older issues. There's the Codeplex site and so on. So there's lots of documentation for you, to help you out. I'll just mention that these last few notes here in my posting is related to sometimes you get business clients that what they really want is data in a highly transferable format like a CSV file, right? And if all they want is a CSV file because that's what other applications they use, well, it's easy to do. This shows you how to do it with EPPlus itself, or this one doesn't require EPPlus. This is good old Scott Hanselman. I love him. Great discussion of that. So lots of different options for you. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I thought we'd just do a quick scenario. I have a copy paste file, which I'll be using, and I encourage you to, grab and follow along. I've got the latest version of our Microsoft Office application from our Learning Moments, and I also have a simple Excel spreadsheet. Now, I've already downloaded that one, and I've got it right here in my work folder. I'm just going to open it up in Excel. So my idea was that, here I'm just going to add some more reasons, right, for appointments. Okay, it's one of our simple lookup tables. So I've deliberately noticed I've made a couple of duplicates because I want to emphasize that right now there is no unique constraint. Okay, maybe that was a design oversight. Maybe we would want that on there, but we don't have it right now. So it just simplifies this process so I can focus more on working with Excel as this first iteration through and having a look at it. But I just ran out of imagination to come up with new reasons, so I cheated and just threw a bunch of extra reasons in here. So we're going to import this data eventually as well. But we're going to see how we can get data out, how we can get data in, etc. Right? Okay, so following along in our with our copy paste file, right? One of the first things I mentioned there is that we want to maybe have a little bit more data to work with. So I'm going to come down here to our seed data. My thought was we'll produce a spreadsheet as a report, right? That's another thing I should mention. Excel is great actually as a reporting tool. So, you don't have to worry about other, once you get this down, you have to worry very often about other fancy reporting tools because you can use Excel. Anyway, all right, so in our seed data, if I go right down, I think I made a note here, line 244. Okay, here is where we're generating how many appointments. So I'm randomly creating between 1 and 4. So I'm going to change that, bump it up to like between 30 and 40 possibly, right? It won't always get that many, but that'll put an upper limit. So we'll make some more appointments as we seed our data. Okay, just so I'll have more to play with. It's always fun when you have a large amount of data, sample data to work with. And if I just delete the database, there it goes. Then that takes care of that. I don't have to, it'll just recreate it and seed it with fresh data when I run. Of course, now I've just lost my my employee profile, so to speak, as admin, but that's okay. We can live with that. All right. Now, so what are we going to do next? Well, I could run the app, but I can wait a minute on that. What we're going to do is we're going to install the EPPlus NuGet package, right? I could go down to manage and search for it, but I do have the command here, the install package command, all ready to go. So this was the most recent version of version 4, right? Before they switched to version 5. So that's the one I'm going to install. I believe it will open a README file at the end of the install. Okay, so here's this important announcement. This is the last version of EPPlus under this general, the license is basically free, right? From version 5, it will be licensed under a different uh, license, this polyform non-commercial, right? And basically that means it's still free to use in some cases, but it will require a commercial license to be used by a company if it's for profit, right? So fortunately, version 4.5, this one here, does everything that we're going to need, okay? So, there's a whole history here of changes and improvements. This was an open source project, but it is now gone so that you can pay a yearly fee to use the latest and greatest. But we're not going to worry about that. What it does right now in this version is more than enough, and it's quite stable. So we're just going to go ahead and make use of it. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just add a button. I thought if we go to the patient index, now I'm going to do this I'm going to assume that only administrator can run this report, just to make my life simple. Because I got 3 different indexes, so I put it on each one, right? So I'm just going to add this one line of code to put an extra button here, or actually a link. It'll look like a button, but it's just a link. Okay. The action will be download appointments. Okay. And it'll just say a download appointment report on the link itself, right? So it's going to look like a button, and float right just means that it will float over to the right. That's just using some of the Bootstrap CSS. Okay. So that gets me my button. So we just have to make this download appointments, okay, inside the actual patient's controller. Okay. So let's come to the patient's controller. And first of all, I'll just shrink everything down, go down near the bottom where I often add additional steps and so on. Now this is an action result, right? So I'm going to throw it right under delete confirmed. Okay, and notice I'm going to put the authorize attribute on here as well. But let me just get all the code and we'll just walk through it. I could step through it a bit at a time, but I think we can just discuss it as we go. Okay. Now, there's a few squiggles I'm going to have to take care of here. For example, Excel package, right? Office Open XML. There we go. So we're using that. We do need the, oh, I'll talk more about this later when we get down to it, but this is to do with changing a setting on our web server to allow us to stream the spreadsheet back. And this is just a style namespace within Office Open XML. Oh, and for color, okay, I need system drawing. All right, so let's just do a quick build. Just make sure I caught everything. Okay, we succeeded. Okay, so let's get back to the top of this download appointments then. Just again, I'll emphasize I've put an authorized attribute here so that only administrators can call this, which is why I only needed to put it on the index for administrators. Okay, so we just call this download appointments, right? So the first is just a link query to go and get the appointments. Okay, we're including the appointment reasons, the patient, the doctor, and so on. And we're putting it in descending order, right? But notice that we're actually going to generate a new anonymous type. Okay, so we're going to take the data being projected from this link query and build objects of this type here. It doesn't have a name, it's just anonymous, but it will work. So we're going to grab the appointment date, the full name of the patient, the reason name, right, for the reason for the appointment, the extra fee, the phone number. Now, of course, it's just stored as without spaces or anything, so we're just going to do a format, okay, here on it, and there's our doctor full name, right? Finally, all those notes from each appointment, which could be quite large, okay? So we create this new EPPlus, okay, which will be an iQueryable, okay? And then once we do that, we just check how many rows we have, right? Figure if I have no data, then I don't need to return anything. So I'll just return a not found because it is an action result. So we have to return something, right? Okay, so we have the data, right? So let's carry on. So here's where we start creating our Excel, right? So we instantiate an Excel package, okay? And I've just got some notes in here so that I'm trying to give you enough information to take this. This won't teach you everything there is to know about EPPlus or even working with Excel from MVC, but I want to give you some ideas of what you can do. So you could also, if you have uploaded a spreadsheet and saved it in something like a uploaded file uh, class, then you can pull that out of the database and work with that spreadsheet as well. That's important because there are times when we don't want to generate everything that goes into the spreadsheet. You know, what I've done in the business world for many clients is you might have a very complex presentation of data built into a spreadsheet where, you know, you've got charts and pivot tables and all this stuff, but all the data just comes from one worksheet inside the spreadsheet, right? Where it's a raw table of all the data. Okay. So what you could do is you could save that whole thing almost like a template into the database, pull it out, just update the data on that one worksheet. And then when you download it, all your graphs and charts and everything are all populated with the data from what you put in there from the database. And your client will just sing your praises and write big 000s after all the numbers they put on your check and be very, very happy. Okay. So I just wanted to mention that you can pull spreadsheets out of uploaded files as well. Anyway, all right. So we've created our Excel. Okay, we go to the worksheets collection, and I'm going to add one. I'm going to name it appointments. Right now, there's a couple different ways you can refer to cells and ranges of cells using this tool. Okay, cells. Okay, just gives us our basically our row and column numbers. Right, so that's one easy way to do it. Okay, so here, load from collection. Look at the power of this, right? Load from collection, we basically pass it an IEnumerable collection, and that's it. So I already pulled out my collection of these anonymous types with all the information from my appointments, and I just pass it, boom, and that's it. One line, and it writes all that data into the spreadsheet, okay? And away we go. Okay. Then the rest of this is just kind of making it look pretty, giving some headings and so on. By the way, that true there means it will actually get pardon me, the titles, okay, the headers across the top, right? Okay, style the first column for dates, okay, so we'll just apply a number format, okay, to column 1. Column 4, we'll do a number format for currency, right? So we have our date and our currency formats being applied. Okay, and then so here at row 4, starting at column 1, going to the bottom of the data because they're num rows, +3, column 2, okay? And we're going to make all that bold, right? So that's another way to refer to a block of cells. Start row, start column, end row, end column. So there's a lot you can learn just by looking at the comments that I have in here. Okay, now that's fine if you're just going to do one thing to a range of cells, but if you want to apply multiple style aspects or styles and do other things with the same range, what we should do is have a using, okay, and define an Excel range, right? So an Excel range can be described similarly, but it means that we actually have that as an object, so to speak, to work with, and then we can apply multiple things. So here we're going to insert a formula, right? And then we'll set the font to bold and apply a number format. Okay. Um, Here's another Excel range. Here's for our headings. Okay, just making the font bold, filling, right, setting the style, the pattern type, and the background color. Give it a nice light blue color. That's for the column headings. That's where we needed the color from, right? We'll skip over that. We'll come back and look at that in a minute. Okay, here's a neat one, auto fit columns. You've done that in Excel where you have things and you double click, to change the width of a column to auto fit, right? By the way, you can manually set the width of columns as well if you want, but auto fit columns, just basically this command at this point will just, all the columns will apply auto fit to, so they'll all expand to hold the data shown inside them. Okay, so we're just going to put a nice big title at the top, okay, appointment report, right? And that's going to be in the first cell, the very upper left cell, row 1, column 1. But notice what we're going to do next. We're going to define a range being the top 6 cells across, right? We're going to merge them together into one, set it to bold, a nice big size of 18, and then center, okay, our appointment report title right in the very top. So you see a lot of this is just little nitpicky things, but it makes it look more professional when you produce the result. And this is much easier to do this kind of thing using a tool like EPPlus. Okay. And it's also important, very important thing, when you've learned about report generation, you should always timestamp any report so that when you look at it, you can see exactly when the report was generated. So if data has changed since then, right, it's very important to be able to compare. So this is what we're doing here is I'm going to grab the UTC date. Okay, that's, remember, universal time code date, right? But we want to put it in our local time here. So we're in Eastern Standard Time. So we're just going to convert it, okay, time from UTC to show the time in our area. And we're going to use that, okay, at the top. So I'm going to say created, right? Put that time as a short time string and also show the date. Okay, we'll make it bold, size 12, and align that right. Okay, that's up near the top. Okay, second row. Okay, that's it. So that's all the formatting and everything. We've made it look pretty and we've made it look good. So now we're just going to download it, right? Now, there's a couple different ways to download the spreadsheet once we've created it. Remember, this spreadsheet right now only exists in memory, right? It has not been saved anywhere. It's just in memory on the server. So there's two approaches. If possible, what I prefer to do is stream. Okay, stream it back, and that way we don't have to like build a formal copy of it just to download it, right? Because that can sometimes, if it's a very large spreadsheet, you can get memory errors. Okay, because you've already got it once, and then you're going to build it again just to download it, right? So the only snaggle is around the same time .NET Core went to version 3, the whole world decided that web servers should disallow synchronous input-output. So there's always been a setting there The default used to be to allow it. Now they've changed the default not to allow it. You can change that, in, for example, in your startup.cs, change it for the whole app all the time. But we can just do a temporary change on the server, right? And that's what we're going to try to do. Now, if we can't, then I'll build the file and return it as a file content result as a backup plan, right? But if I can access this feature on the server and change it to allow me to download, to stream the content into the body of the response coming back, then that would be my preferred way to do it. Okay. I mean, both will work 99% of the time, but it is possible with a very large spreadsheet that this first approach is the more reliable. Okay, so here we just grab from our context features, we get this particular feature, right? And as long as we actually have it so we can manipulate it, then we set the allow synchronous IO to true. And that will allow us to stream our spreadsheet back, okay? Then all we have to do is grab a memory stream, right? And we basically set our response, our content type, okay, and our header. We have to put the right header so that we give the file name there as part of it, right? By the way, if you want, you could play with a string and actually change the file name every time, date stamp it or whatever you want. It is just a string here, right? And then our Excel, we save as a memory stream, and then we write that out to our response body. And there we go, and that gets the file down. Now, our backup plan, if for some reason we can't change that setting on the server, right, and without it we won't be able to stream, then what we'll do is the standard approach is we take our Excel, convert it back into a byte array, right, and we know that we can return files, okay, if we pass the byte array, right, pass the MIME type, and then a file name. So that's all we're doing here is we get the byte array back and so on. And this returns it as well. The only problem with this is, I said, it can be more prone to running out of memory or getting out of memory error messages on a large spreadsheet. But it's a good backup in case we can't stream it. And that's basically it. These catches are there mainly just because you have to have a return on every path because it is an action result, right? And it has to be an action result so that we have the option, if necessary, sorry, I'm scrolling, I know, uh, but if necessary, to be able to return a file, well, it either has to be a file content result or the parent of that, just an action result, right? Either one will let us do it. And because we want this as our backup plan, I need to have it as an action result. Sorry, I'm over explaining things, but then again, it doesn't hurt to have the full picture. So that should work. So let's actually give her a try. Now, I'll take a moment the first time here because, of course, I'm going to have to create the database, seed the data, and whatnot. But here we are. So if I log in as admin, of course, you know where I'm going to go. It wants me to complete my account. I can skip it for now. I can just come down here to maintain lookup values. No, I want to go to patients, right? Yeah. So there's my new button, download patient appointments. Okay. So I've got lots of, like if I go into somebody, pick anybody I want here. And you see, look at there's 13 pages of appointments. If I maybe make that something a little more reasonable, like 5, okay, gets it down to 8 pages. But I've created lots of appointments here in my seed data, right? So going back to the patient list, I can click my download appointment report, and there we are. There's my spreadsheet, right? Now, depending on your browser, it may just immediately start downloading, or it might prompt you to do a save as, or show the little thing down near the bottom where you can choose save or save as, and so on. Here, I'll just let it open with Excel, and there we go. So there's my appointment report. Notice how we merged these top 6 cells, made a nice big header at the top. There's my date, my patient name, my reason for the appointment, the fee, the phone number, the doctor's name, and here are all the notes for each appointment, right? All right, and there's my timestamp created at 9:07 on there's today's date. I can't hide it from you, can I? You know exactly when I'm making this video. And there we go. And I'll just go right down to the bottom. So notice we added this formula here, and we did this right in our code. We created this formula by knowing how many rows of data there was. I went 1 row past that. We added the formula here to sum up the total fees collected. Okay, this is over and above anything from OHIP, of course, right? All right, so there you go. So there's an example, and you can play around this, as I said, all that documentation on different things you can do. But one thing that you notice right away is this is a lot of data here in these notes. And maybe you want it this way, that's perfectly fine. But I just want to point out a little change. So I probably should have done a Control F5, but anyway, I'll just come up here. I kind of skipped over this. Boy, the notes are big, right? So I'm gonna show you how you can put them inside comments. Not saying this is a great thing to do, but hey, it's fun and I can show you something new by doing it, right? Okay, so we're gonna put them in comments instead. So we're gonna start at row 4 because that's where I know my data started, right? Because I put the heading and so on above. And we're gonna go right down as long as it's less than number of rows plus 4. Okay, so we're gonna just basically step through all the rows, right? And then we're going to define a range each time, okay? And we're going to take our um, comment words, right? That's the field that contains the words, right? And we'll make a string array of those and we'll split it, right, on spaces. And I'll just start putting the words together. I'm going to add a new line character every 7 words. Otherwise, it'll just spread across the screen again. So it gives me a chance to, put it together this way. By the way, you could do this and then put it into the cell as well if you don't want it in a comment. But I wanted to show you how to do a comment. So if I go to the range, I can just do add comment, right? And there I pass in the string, the text, as well as you have to supply an author, right? But of course, the author doesn't really have to be you. Okay, and then we call autofit at the end, and that's it. So let's just see the change by doing it this way. And once more, I'm going to get nagged unless I finally do it. So maybe I will. I'll just take a moment and fill this in. Okay. All right, there we go. And then I see my account. So now I won't be bugged. I filled out my basic account details here, right? All right, so now I can go to patients. Let's download that appointment report again. Now, of course, obviously, we might do things like, you might want to only see like a date range, all the appointments, in a given range. Maybe you would just see appointments for a given patient, right? So you could obviously add additional filters, and of course, that's just then passing values to uh, your link query and so on. But I want to show you here. So here are those notes put into a comment so that you can hover over, read all the comments from a given appointment. And of course, this is all coming from our Bacon Lipsum, right? But at least you can see what's going on here then. Okay, so just lots of things you can do. It just opens up your mind to the possibilities of generating spreadsheets in this way. Next, let's talk about uploading data. All right. So for this, what I decided to pick on is our reasons for appointment, right? Now, let me just point out, if we come here to our appointment reasons, our model, it's a pretty simple model, okay? And we just have our primary key, our ID, our reason name, right? And then our collection of appointments. So really, it's just a simple lookup, right? It's just related, of course, to the appointments. Let me emphasize one more thing. The reason name is not, there's no restriction in our Fluent API to add a unique constraint, right? So we're allowing right now duplicates. Maybe that's not the best idea, but that's the way it is. So it makes it simple for this demonstration because I don't have to worry about duplicates, is what it comes down to. All right, so I'll just close all these. What we're going to do then is, where do we manage those now? Well, this of course is, I shouldn't say gotten complicated, but now we have our common lookups, right? And on our lookups index, we utilize these 3, and we might eventually add more partial views. So here's one for appointment reasons, right? So right now it's a bootstrap card, right? Whereas in the card body, we just have our list showing 6 different reasons, and we can scroll up and down, and away we go. So I'm just going to add a little bit of a form in here, right? That lets me go and get my Excel spreadsheet and put it in place. So just to avoid messing up my copy paste, I just grab the whole card body here. Okay, so this is the exact same. I didn't change this drop down list, right? But we've added this form. My action will be insert from Excel in the appointment reasons controller, right? Uh, that controller, of course, is the one we still go to. Okay, even down here when we create, edit, and delete, we're still all doing that inside the appointment reasons controller. It's just that whenever we're done any of these operations, we come back here, right? So we're going to go to that same controller. We'll make this new action, insert from Excel, right? Notice that our setting here, enclosure type, multi-part form data, right? That's so that I just have a simple upload Excel file, right? And of course, this is the farthest thing from bulletproof. If your spreadsheet is not laid out the right way, then this is not going to work. There's no error handling. I'm going to leave all that up to you, right? This is just a simple implementation, assuming a perfect world where nobody would do anything wrong and upload a file that is in the incorrect format or anything else, right? So we have an input type as file called the Excel, right? And then we upload the data and away we go. Okay, so we have to come to this controller, the appointment reasons controller. Come up to controllers, and we'll just add this new method. So I'm going to come down, maybe put it after delete confirmed. Okay. Now I only want to handle a post, right? Because I need to get my data, so I might as well annotate it here for HTTP post. Okay. Now we need a few things, of course, right? We are uploading a file, so we've done this before. We need ASP.NET Core HTTP, right, to get our iForm file. That's to handle the uploaded file itself. Okay. And of course, for our Excel package, there's our Office OpenXML. And for the memory stream, we need system IO. Okay. All right. So I just had a big disclosure here. Note, this is a very basic example. There's no error handling here, right? So that's something you should think about in the real world or in your projects, right? Also assumes that duplicate values are allowed, so there's no checks for duplicates either in the uploaded data or, when you actually are inserting data into the DB set, right? There's nothing to handle any of that. So we're going to get duplicates, and that's just the way it is. All right. But we're focused on really just working with Excel and taking data from this uploaded spreadsheet and putting it into the database. So the rest of it, you'll have to take this, build on it, and do it in a better, more professional way. So I create my Excel package, okay? We create our memory stream that we're going to use to copy, okay, the Excel that's uploaded, right, to our memory stream. And then we can create a new Excel package, okay, from that memory stream, and we store that here in our Excel, right? Then I'm assuming that the first worksheet, index 0, is the one where the data sits, okay? This is kind of neat. Dimension, as it says, dimension uh, finds the address for the worksheet, the top left cell, right? And then, so the start is the top left cell, the end is the bottom right cell of everything on a given worksheet. Okay. Now, again, I've assumed that I have basically just one column of values. There's no heading. Just all the values are placed in that first column of this first worksheet in the spreadsheet. Okay, then I'm going to use the add range approach because it's a good sort of batch processing type of an approach. So we'll create an empty collection of appointment reasons, right? As we go through row by row, notice we're going from our start row to our end row, right? And as I said, we're going on the simple assumption that everything's here in the first column, right? So as I go through row by row, I'll create a new appointment reason, and I can access the data in each cell, just worksheet cells, by the row, first column, and grabbing that text, right? And that'll give me my reason name for each one that I create, adding it to this list that we're building. And then I can call my context. Of course, we're in a controller, so I have my DB context, the appointment reasons DB set, add range, and then just throw in that whole collection, right? Then I just call save changes once on that whole collection, and that's it. And of course, I don't have a try catch because everything is perfect in my world and nothing ever goes wrong, so I don't have to worry about it. And then we just redirect back to, remember, it's our lookups controller, the index action, and this is how we have it show a given tab, right? We pass this tab equals, and that's the name of the tab or the ID of the tab to show. All right, so let's see if it actually works. So remember what that spreadsheet I showed it to you earlier? It just has one column of names for appointment reasons. There's duplication within the data itself, and some are duplicates of what's in the actual um, database already as well. So we're gonna lots of duplication here. So if I come to reasons for appointments, I've got these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 values right now: accident, annual checkup, illness. So I know there's another COVID-19, and I think accident are also in my spreadsheet. So I'm going to browse. Okay, we'll find our spreadsheet. So here it is in my work folder. I'll open it. There we go. And by the way, if you want to style this nicely with Bootstrap and so on, feel free. I'm going to leave that up to you. I just say upload data, and there we go. And it worked. So I have all my new reasons, right? There's my duplication. Workers' compensation was in there twice, right? So, and COVID-19 is in there twice, and so on. So, clearly there are problems with this approach. We should have a unique constraint on here so we don't get duplication, but it did make it easy for me to show you without complicating it with all that kind of error handling. Now, of course, I can always select delete. There we go. That got rid of that duplicate. Any more? Oh yeah, COVID-19. I'll pick one and delete it. Now, of course, unable to, this one has been used. They might look the same, but they aren't, right? The new one I added, I should be able to delete. There we go. Okay, see referential integrity at play. All right, I think that's all the duplicates I've removed now. So anyway, the point was to show you how you can grab data from the uploaded file, right? Just using a simple memory stream, get it into an Excel object that then we can start manipulating, reading through it, and so on. So there's a good start for you on working with Excel, both generating Excel spreadsheets as reports possibly, and taking data from an uploaded Excel spreadsheet and working with it in one way or another. Hope you had fun.